Hello, I'm Stuart Preston, and this is the Stone Dave Reports, where I have conversations with those who have changed their lives with the help of psychedelics. In this episode, I had the honor of speaking with Gary. Gary shares his story of what I might call religious trauma, as well as substance abuse and a well-timed mushroom trip. So let's hear from Gary. Gary, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here on the Stone Dave Reports. I'm excited to talk to you. You came highly recommended. You've built up quite a community around yourself, and I can greatly appreciate that. So first of all, thanks for joining and for talking about your experiences.
Well, yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's an honor to be able to talk about this with you. So I appreciate you having this venue and this podcast that, for people to openly talk about these things that can be life-changing.
Yeah, and that's the point is, like you just alluded to, it can be life-changing. I mean, you and I talk to people all the time who are going through some pretty hard things and come to these psychedelic medicines and find a path or a tool or an avenue or something to help themselves. So why don't we do that? Why don't you tell us kind of what your origin story is? What were you going through in life that was challenging, that you were trying to overcome, and how you came to the medicine, and then jump in and talk about your experiences and how they helped.
Yeah, definitely. You said origin story, and I immediately went to am I the superhero in this, or am I the villain in this one?
Yeah. No, you're the superhero, man.
I suppose who it depends on who you ask.
Yeah, Hero Gary's journey.
Right. Oh man. So yeah, I was born into the Jehovah's Witness cult, and I'll say cult because it is cult-like. It's both my parents. Lucky me, both my parents became Jehovah's Witnesses when my mom was pregnant, and it is a Christian religion, but it's delusional. It's narcissistic, really, because they say there's the only true faith. It's very repressive. You to be able to survive in that environment, you have to just shove down all your natural instincts, your desires, and I guess maybe that's why my parents ended up in that, because that was a big part of their coping mechanism. Of course, I didn't know it in the moment, but after the fact, hindsight, that was what was modeled to me at home as well. Just pretend like everything's okay and just shove it down, and for me to be able to survive in that environment, because I had, and it was just a mind fuck, because I was allowed to go to school, like regular school. Some Jehovah's Witnesses are kept completely separate, and homeschool and all that, but I went to regular school, and I had my regular friends that I, rode BMX bikes with all day long and all summer long and everything. But then, 3 times a week I had to go to what they call the Kingdom Hall and these different church meetings and groups. And then I was forced to do the door-to-door thing too, very early on, until I left, at 18. So I had to pretend like I was a good Jehovah's Witness around the, that realm. I had to pretend like I was a good, kid to my parents. And then I totally unconscious, but I went out of my way to prove to my friends and the, people at school that I wasn't a Jehovah's Witness. So, as much as my friends, we got into alcohol early on, and we were, I guess you could say, we were hoodlums. We liked destruction. We liked breaking stuff and doing that kind of thing. And I always took it way further than everybody else. Just that I'm not that goody two shoes kid like those other Jehovah's Witnesses, at school. But in what that meant was I was never authentic anywhere. I was never in my truth anywhere, which is kind of funny because Jehovah's Witnesses call their faith the truth, capital T.
Oh yeah, but you never were your truth.
No, and and also, even though I was born into it, I clearly remember early on hearing somebody give a talk at the Kingdom Hall with their wild interpretations of the Bible, and I just knew it wasn't right. I knew, like, deep down, my heart of hearts, I knew it wasn't right. But I also, you're not allowed to question things, and you're not allowed to, you're not allowed
Yeah.
to do your own thing. You have to follow a very, strict path with them. So so I'm already suffering inside. I'm never living, authentically, and, and just miserable inside my head. And then also that weird mix of like, I don't believe this, but it's the only thing I know. So I was kind of resolved on like, well, they don't believe in premarital sex. And so that means everybody gets married young and they, just start working some shitty job. You're not allowed to go to college. I think they just recently changed that, those motherfuckers, but I wasn't allowed to go to college. Supposed to spend the rest of your life, preaching to others, turning other people into Jehovah's Witnesses. And I didn't believe it, but I was also kind of like, this is what I'm going to do. But, it was the first time I tried alcohol. It was with my cousin who, nobody else in my either parts of my dad's or my mom's family were Jehovah's Witnesses. So my cousin was older than me, spent a summer there. Her and her boyfriend played quarters with me, got me super drunk. I threw up but it was glorious. We also watched some Marilyn Chambers porn movie while drunk. It was a glorious evening. And I felt, I think really for the first time, I felt some relief from the crippling, mental suffering that I experienced pretty much 24 hours a day. And, from then it was on. And, I was never in high school. I was never like a drink every day kind of guy, but, anytime I could, stealing alcohol from parents and, and sneaking out to parties and, I don't know, the summer between 6th and 7th grade, whatever age that is, that's when I got drunk. And then in 7th grade, I smoked pot. And then by 9th grade, I tried cocaine interestingly, with a older ex-Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, wow.
So, drugs and alcohol were a more effective coping mechanism for me, it worked for a while. So, I don't want to get too much into the story, but it's funny. I moved to Florida right after high school. My dad had moved out there for work, and I graduated high school in California, and I was going to stay. And then right at the last minute, I was like, I'll go to Florida and, live with my parents.
Yeah.
And when I went there, I only hung out with other Jehovah's Witnesses, but they drank like me and went to, rock concerts and stuff. And they were all baptized. And, in that thing, in the Jehovah's Witness thing, you have to be old enough to decide you want to be baptized.
Okay.
So I got baptized at like 17 years old. And within 6 months, I got busted for getting drunk and for sleeping with my girlfriend. So from there, I was like, no, I'm out of here.
That was it.
What's that?
That was it. That's what getting busted for that. You're like, okay, this is not for me.
Yeah. I was already pulling away, but that was the kind of switch when they publicly announced that I was on reproof, they're kind of tarnishing my name publicly. And I was like, nah, I'm out of here. So I got out, moved out, moved directly into a party house with another ex-Jehovah's Witness who was, really big into pills and everything. He's actually dead now, unfortunately, from Odin. But, from there it was on, I was living in Florida. Cocaine was around all the time. Pretty much every night I partied. I had a good job. I got a job working for a small chain of mom and pop chain of camera stores, doing sales, making good money. I think at 19 or 20 years old, they actually made me manager of one of the stores, and then I became a buyer for all 4 or 5 stores, whatever it was. So I actually did well. I don't know, professionally. I suppose even financially for being that young. And then and also not really being authentic in that environment either, and then just like going out, hanging with my buddies, going to clubs just about every night, going to concerts, getting cocaine pretty much every weekend, just getting blackout drunk all the time, driving drunk, looking back now, I was just desperate to get out of my pain that I was in, the emotional and I suppose even spiritual pain that I was in. So living in Florida, every time it rained, there was mushrooms that grew everywhere. So, and this is early 90s. Acid was all around. And I love that stuff. I did a report on drugs, I think in 7th grade, for science. And I remember reading I think I wrote it in my report. They talked about an LSD trip. You can taste sounds and see smells.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like, God damn, that sounds good. I want to experience that. So, I've never been able to do anything in moderation, just always everything to, a big extent. My friends that I rode bikes with, I'd always, try and be more destructive than them, more crazy than them. And, I wanted to drink and use more than anybody else. And so, I just got, deeper and deeper. I consumed huge amounts of mushrooms and LSD in those years. And interestingly, with all the trauma that I had, I never had a bad trip. I've had, I've had some uncomfortable moments in some psychedelic experiences, but I never had one where I freaked out and that kind of, that's, you hear about this thing. I just thankfully, I've never experienced that.
And that was all recreational at that time. Is that right? Or did you do it in any kind of a spiritual way? That's
the rationalization I had with it. I told myself that I was having fun, that I was partying. And, and then I just kind of progressed. I started advancing in doing sales. I became a sales rep. I got a job offer out in LA and California again, because I originally was in California and then moved to Florida, moved to LA in like 96. And when I moved out there, I started making a lot of money. The owner of the clothing line that I was the sales manager for, his best friend was a Coke dealer. So I was getting $100 8 balls in LA, driving from Redondo Beach into Hollywood every night, fucked up on, alcohol, on cocaine and hallucinogens when I could get at them.
Yeah.
And I just, it was one of those things. I got deeper and deeper and deeper. I met somebody, dated, she got pregnant, despite me being a degenerate and in addition to drugs and alcohol, I acted out unskillfully in many ways, including sex and violence and, a million other things.
Yeah.
Despite the way I lived, I suppose I had some of those like traditional values inside. So when got this woman pregnant, we got married, and she had a kid, we had a kid. And then we had another one a few years later, and I actually started my own company at that time. It was just, I kept progressing in sales, being inauthentic, giving people what I thought they wanted from me, whether it was a, good Jehovah's Witness kid or, whatever, that really helped in sales. So I've done really well in sales through the years.
Right.
I ended up starting my own company and started making ridiculous money. And, and along with that money was just the, the ego and the, the Escalades and the Rolexes and jewelry. And just, my safe at my office was just full of cash, and a lot of it went, maybe it was a little bit before I started my company, but I started to use an 8 ball of cocaine daily myself when I was on a bender, and benders could last, a couple days, or it could last, weeks. It could have, some benders would be like 6 months, and then I'd end the bender and be like, oh God, I got to stop doing this. I'm killing myself with cocaine. My heart's beating out of my chest and my nose is bleeding all the time. And I actually looked into severing the sweat glands in my wrists that go to the hands, because when I just thought of cocaine, my hands and my feet would start sweating. And it was a real problem. It was never a problem. But if I was anywhere, I did leave handprints of sweat on the countertops.
Yeah.
I was just mortified by that. And I was suffering greatly inside, and I was so familiar with feeling overwhelmed, using drugs and alcohol, whatever else to escape from that, but also feeling mortified at everything, just constantly criticizing everything that I did and said in my head, over and over again. So, I'd end a bender, swear this stuff. I got to stop doing cocaine, but I don't drink every day, and I don't smoke pot every day. So I don't have a problem with that stuff. And, and then just that thing, as much as I'd swear it off, and then I'd, end up doing it again and again and again. And so here we are in 2007. And I went to Las Vegas for a trade show for my company, along with my sales reps and my buyer. And we had a big showroom. It was like 2-story showroom that had a built-in bar and had it all stocked up with alcohol. But I made this promise to myself that I'm not bringing drugs. This is for me and my brand, and to do big sales. And of course, the day that we did set up, I took everybody out to dinner, and then that night we ended up in somebody's big suite in the Rio, and they opened up the safe and had a big rock of cocaine. And then, it was in my possession the next day, and I'm off to the races. But in the middle of that week, one of my friends also brought mushrooms. He also brought Altoids with acid dripped on it, which I never actually got to do, but I ate mushrooms, and I ate a bunch. I don't remember what it was. I'd always consumed everything in excess, but in the middle of that week, I ate mushrooms, and I fucking tripped hard. I didn't want to leave my room. And, it wasn't like I was freaking out, but it was one of those, I don't want to walk around Vegas. I don't want the bright lights.
Yeah.
I stayed in my room. I watched a bunch of movies on pay-per-view. There was, I do remember specifically, there was a Tyler Perry movie that was about him being a single dad, and he had 2 daughters, and it was painful. And there was that whole, and meanwhile, like in real life, things were not going well with my ex-wife, and my daughters were little, and and I'm just feeling all sad and bad for myself. Right. And looking at the picture on my, again, this is 2007, so I had a BlackBerry. Right. Looking at the family photo, Christmas photo on my phone, and then just watching that picture and that phone melt in my hand over and over and over again. And I do remember, middle of I think it was probably like 3 a.m. And now I'm starting to look at the time, and I'm still tripping hard. And I think the trade show started at 9 a.m. And I thought, well, I had the brilliant idea, maybe if I do some cocaine right now, it'll wake me up out of the trip. Right. And that was a bad idea. I don't recommend that at all. Do not mix cocaine with hallucinogens. Don't do cocaine, period. Yeah. Stay with plant medicines. But so, I survived. Obviously, I'm here. I came out of that trip, pretty much immediately coming out of it with the clearest insight that I had to stop doing everything. It wasn't just cocaine. It wasn't just hard drugs. It was everything. The delusion that I was partying, that I was having a good time, that I deserved it or I earned it, was just completely shattered. And I knew I had to get sober from everything, and whatever it took to get sober and stay sober. And and just to back up a little bit, previous to this, and before I got married, there was a few times that both with LSD and with mushrooms that I came out of those trips with very clear insights that I had to quit my job and get out. That clothing company that I worked for, that I made a bunch of money for, it was actually acid. It was fucking amazing shit from Europe. I still have really good connections. I had really good connections, but the first time the LSD was like, you need to quit your job right now. And I came out of it, and I started making plans. I started, checking with other companies and fielding offers. But then I think it was only maybe a week or 2 later, I ate the rest of the acid. And that one was like, you need to quit now. And I don't even think I didn't accept any offers, but I went in the next day, and I'm like, this is it. I can give them my 2 weeks. So I've had many, life-changing insights from hallucinogens. Both. I prefer plant medicines definitely, but I'm in LSD and some other stuff. So, and that was it, man. I've been lucky. The obsession to drink or use, the compulsion to drink or use when I feel overwhelmed, when I feel stressed, when I feel happy, has been completely removed from me. I did, I got interested in Buddhism like almost 30 years ago through a friend, and meditation was this thing that I always was kind of in the back of my mind, and I'd try it here and there. And when things were getting really bad as far as my my internal suffering and dissatisfaction in life, I started practicing mindfulness fairly regularly. And then I just in a random chance, I ended up in Zen-based therapy, that, mindfulness, not just meditation on a cushion, but mindfulness in relationships and life, was just the foundation in the whole thing. And in doing that for a little bit, then I had that big insight with psilocybin and got sober. And so, my meditation practice has been a part of my sobriety. My meditation practice has been the thing that has helped me, I think, benefit and maybe get the most out of my psychedelic experiences.
So you had actually started meditating before that epiphanal moment in Las Vegas with the mushrooms and the cocaine?
Yes, but doing a lot of cocaine wasn't real helpful for a mindfulness practice.
No.
So, I was convinced I was a pretty bad meditator for a long time.
Yeah. But you at least started it. You kind of saw this, and it began it, even though cocaine running through your veins is not really conducive to mindfulness, like you said. But you had started that before. Then you had the epiphany and stopped those habits of yours. And it sounds like you stopped a lot of the destructive habits and flowed into a meditation practice. Do I have that right?
Yes. Just everything kind of clicked at that point.
Yeah.
All the therapy that I'd done before, the meditation that I've done before, the men's groups and relationship skills groups, all that stuff really clicked when I got that clarity from the psilocybin to that was the big delusion I was under, that I don't have a problem with this stuff. And then when that fell away, then I could, I really started growing up, and healing myself specifically, with a ton of forgiveness and and loving kindness. And before I got sober, one of my best friends, we were drug buddies. He was very traumatized. He was adopted. Went through some really rough stuff. We found each other. We used with each other all the time. We'd go down to Mexico and get drugs down in Mexico and come up, and he got bad into heroin. And this is like 20 years ago, I think. I read about Iboga I think it was the LA Times. And I read about specifically an Iboga treatment center for drug addiction in Mexico. And I tried to pay for him to go down there. Of course I did. I was still convinced I didn't have a problem at the time, but he's the heroin addict. He's the bad one.
Yeah.
He wasn't ready to do it. And we actually didn't hang out for a while after that, which sucked. But, I'm a sober guy and Buddhist guy. And he got really bad in heroin and crystal meth. And I don't know. This is like, I think 8 years ago, he calls me up and he says, "Hey man, things are really, really bad. And I got a hold of some Iboga. I'm going to rent a hotel room. Will you sit with me?" And we did that. He's got medical training. He's was formerly an ICU respiratory therapist, which also always worked in the graveyard shift. And he said that everybody else at the hospital was on meth too, the ones that worked late. So FYI for that. If you think
Good
hospitals are safe places and
wow.
medical practitioners know everything.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he gave himself 3 times the amount that he should have. And he tripped hard for 3 days. And I did very little. I actually didn't do any research, to be honest. I didn't do any research. I held space, tried, it was just there with him, and he came out of it, and that was it. His life is turned around, and, he got so much out of this that he actually started 2 Iboga clinics, one in Mexico and one in Costa Rica, and started bringing me down when he had enough patients to pay for for everything. I would come down and I would teach meditation to these patients before their Ibo trip. I would trip sit with them during the flood dose, and then help them create an aftercare program, which primarily is, I love teaching forgiveness and loving kindness practices, because those of us that come into recovery, those of us with trauma, those of us with anger, with fear, with addiction, we usually have really, really bad relationships with ourselves, and then and hanging on to resentment towards others and blame towards others. And so using meditative practices to start to unburden ourselves. And so I started teaching down there, and then this is about 4 years ago. Is that right? 3 years ago. He started, down in Mexico, he took part in a toad ceremony with, 5-MeO DMT, and found that, and within that community of Ibo practitioners, he does a week-long treatment, and kind of in the middle of the week is the flood dose, and then it coming down from that. And then at the end of the week, he does a toad ceremony. And, it just really seems to complete the process. Iboga gives them this trip that their whole life kind of comes up before their eyes, so to speak, and they're able to make sense of things and let go of things. And, it's this huge unburdening of a lot of this trauma and everything. And then the 5-MeO DMT is, a lot of times it's just this huge heart opening experience. And so for me, at 11 years sober, squeaky clean sober, I mean, nothing, not even a prescribed pharmaceutical from a doctor. I mean, I didn't do anything. I didn't smoke cigarettes, no weed, no nothing medicinally. But through that process, ayahuasca was calling me. I got close to doing some ceremonies and didn't in Los Angeles. I'm grateful, because after the fact, I heard they were, just total charlatan.
Gotta be careful with those.
Yeah. So, I didn't do that, thankfully, but it was just this coincidental thing. My best friend called me up, and he was dealing with a kind of a high-end client, and doing a private treatment with him and his mother. And he asked me to come out and teach him meditation. And he'd been telling me how beautiful the, toad journey was. And so, at 11 years squeaky clean sober, I took part in a toad ceremony, and it was life-changing. I mean, it was just beautiful, and the most gorgeous, not just colors and shapes, but like worlds, realms. It informed my meditation practice too. I know that first toad ceremony, I just kept coming up. I kept laughing, and I guess I kept saying, it doesn't matter. And I clearly noticed my mind wanting to articulate and describe the experience I was having, but I also
wanted to narrate.
Yeah, well, yes, but then I also clearly saw that whatever words I gave it, however label I tried to put on it, would make it so much smaller than what it is.
Yeah.
And that has gone on to, all these beautiful meditative experiences that you can attain or achieve.
Yeah.
And then also just that, just the, again, the deep experience of, psilocybin or LSD or, 5-MeO DMT, where just this deep realization of how interconnected we all are, and, how, our, the quote unquote problems we have are just so insignificant, and, and that love is the answer, right? That,
Yeah.
so, yeah, I still, these years later, I've never done cocaine. I've never done pot. I've never drank. I have taken a part in a handful of toad ceremonies very intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
That is a big difference than previously. Like, that last mushroom trip that helped me get sober was unintentional. I didn't plan for it. I didn't intend it to be a spiritual journey or a transformational thing. I just wanted to fucking blast off to outer space, or,
Yeah, it was another cool drug.
Yeah. And now, I sit with it a while. I make sure that I'm not, doing this as an escape. I'm specifically, I've intentionally had some psychedelic experiences, with the intention to tap into maybe some of the deep-seated trauma that I still have. And the kind of surprising thing was nothing has really come up, like no deep, dark secrets, no, not even a taste of something that's still lingering. So the last toad ceremony I did was beautiful and huge. And at the end of it, I just had this very clear insight, like, yeah, I don't need to do this anytime soon. So, there's, I have such respect for plants and, and animal medicines. I've been able to take part in some Kambo treatments, not really psychedelic or hallucinogenic, but also, but very kind of spiritual and cleansing, and
right,
can be beautiful. So, yeah, there's this whole other world, and I'm in this weird position to where, I'm in recovery, and I guess, being in Portland, Oregon, there's a lot of people that there's a term, green and clean. There's these people that are in, recovery. Heroin's so big up here. There's people that are sober off of heroin or, meth or whatever else, but they smoke pot as a medicine.
Right.
I'm not there, but, hallucinogens, psychedelics have changed my life for the better. And I have a huge respect. I trip sit with Iboga. When things go legal here in Oregon, I plan to get certified and be able to legally trip sit, here locally. That's been calling me a lot. I've done a fair amount of research and made connections on, preparing for this hopeful change that's happening here in this state. So
yeah, and I hear that. Well, first of all, yeah, I hope you get that change. That would be fantastic. But I hear from a lot of people. I talk to the people on this podcast, and a lot of times I will ask, what is the key to a good experience, with the medicines? And you always hear set and setting, dosage, substance, but one of the common things I also hear is having somebody there with you. So not necessarily a guide or a therapist or somebody shaping the experience, but just having somebody to hold space with you, to be there with you. And so that's the kind of thing that you do right now. Sounds like with Iboga, and you're hoping to do, once things go the right direction, hopefully there in Oregon. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, of course, set and setting, which, I had previous to getting sober and starting to do the stuff intentionally. Like, I never thought about that. I've done hallucinogens in some pretty fucked up places.
Right.
And that is one thing that I have, through meditation practice and the openness that I've in clarity that I've gotten from these psychedelics, that I am a lucky motherfucker, and that I'm alive, and I just can't risk, I don't want to keep trying my luck, but life is just simpler the way I'm living now. So, Yeah, set and setting, of course, but with being a meditation teacher, and maybe this is why I've never had a bad trip. The one thing I say to everybody, I was just saying something, or somebody posted online, I just got some mushrooms, I'm really kind of scared.
Yeah.
People are offering set and setting and all that, but I always say, you gotta, during the trip, you need to let go. You need to let go more. You need to let go even more, and you need to keep letting go. And that has just been the, just with meditation in general, with experiencing a trip, because they come as waves. It gets stronger, it gets weaker. It takes you to it brings you some maybe some upsetting things or some dark things, and to not get consumed by fear, to not take it personally, to just let it arise and pass like all other phenomena, like the clouds in the sky, or the sun rising or setting. So really, and then there's other mindfulness practices of grounding yourself. If you're really kind of getting squirrely, freaking out, just like feeling into your body, feeling the weight of your body, or the connection that your body's making on whatever you're laying on or sitting on. Maybe visually finding a visual anchor in the space that you're in, something that feels safe or comfortable for you to, and just kind of train your vision on that. That's, to be able to help people with that. And then, and also just the physical thing. And that's one thing with every toad ceremony I've been, has been held by my best friend, who I love to death. And he's been there by my side. And pretty much every time I end up kind of like rolling over, you lay on your back when it's happening. I mean, your vision of this world is gone. You're in another realm.
Yeah.
But, I've kind of rolled over to the side, and I don't know how many times I've ended up in his embrace and hugging him and reaching out to him. And one of the trips, I had a big realization that he and I had been soulmates, not in a romantic way, but we have been together in so many fucking lives that walked these paths together and protected each other and supported each other. And what's the term? Not incantation.
Incarnation.
Incarnation. There we go. Thank you. Yeah. So that, we're just in these bodies this time right now. And we got all this stuff ahead. Well, the Buddhist idea is once you reach full liberation, then you stop this cycle of life and death and rebirth. So yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, you hear that a lot in different circles. So that's pretty interesting. So what else? You're doing more now. Do you have any websites or any way somebody wanted to contact you, learn about meditation or learn about some of the other things you have going on? Do you have a way for them to reach out and find you?
Yeah, definitely. I am a teacher in Portland at Portland Insight Meditation Community. You can go to portlandinsight.org. I do a weekly group on Tuesday nights called Boundless Heart. And then I do, occasional class series and workshops and day-longs. And, right now with COVID, it's all via Zoom. Right. Accessible anywhere in the world. We are Pacific time, so keep that in mind. My own personal website, which there's some really good talks and meditations on there that you can view for free. There's a way to contact me on there. If you're to look at it this moment, all the text on there is going to be gibberish. Working on that right now, but it is a way to contact me. And good. You can view or listen to stuff. It's Boundless Heart Dharma. That's a Buddhist term, Dharma, DHARMA. It means teachings or reality, really. BoundlessHeartDharma.com.
Perfect. And I will put a link to that on the website and in the text of the podcast, so anybody out there should be able to find it real easy.
Yeah. I deal with people, individually or in group form, or both with meditation, with recovery, and then hopefully legally here soon, psilocybin trip sitting.
Yeah. Well, I got my fingers crossed for you, Gary. I hope that happens.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. It's exciting. It's changed and this is where I come from. When I teach meditation, I teach from my own firsthand experience. And this is what drew me to Buddhism. It's not about blind faith. It's not about, trust me and do this. It's find out for yourself, experience the benefits yourself, and then decide if you're going to go on with it. And so, yeah, that's how I teach meditation from my own experience. And then, with these different psychedelics, with these plant medicines, my life has changed because of it. And, and I do try and be as vocal as possible about it, because, there are many paths, and this is one of them. It's certainly not a quick fix, but if you have the right set and setting and a good intention, and you're able to really just let it unfold as it unfolds, you can receive an incredible benefit.
Yeah, like you've shown us.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. I'd say working through the trauma of an oppressive religion and ending up with I don't know if it was pure addiction, but the substance abuse that you dealt with, and the negative feelings from that. And I think it's remarkable. I've heard other people talk about taking a LSD or psilocybin in a one-time thing, and not even necessarily in a spiritual way or whatever, and get the lesson. Bam! Hey, you need to turn things around. You need to stop doing this, and get them on the right path. So I sure am glad that those mushrooms spoke to you that night.
Me too. Yeah. Thank God for mushrooms. I don't believe in God, but
yeah.
Thank the universe for mushrooms.
Yeah, we'll meditate on that one.
And DMT and
yeah, all the medicines. Well, is there anything else you want to get out there, Gary? Did we cover it all?
The one thing that I really like to point out, and I can't really pin it down on one thing, the psychedelics, the meditation, the sobriety, all the work that I've done. But, and the one thing, in the 12-step world, they say when you're speaking in a meeting or presenting somewhere, they suggest that you talk about what it was like before, what happened, and then what it's like now. And so, I talked a lot about what happened, and maybe touched on a little bit of before, up until I was, 35 years old, maybe even a little bit more, in my head constantly, criticizing everything that I did and said, or regretting the things I didn't do or say, judging everybody else, just this inner critic just in my ear, and just horrible. I sometimes joke, if somebody else talked to me the way that I used to talk to myself, I'd punch him in the fucking nose.
Yeah.
That is not around anymore. I don't have a critical voice. I don't, I'm forgiving and kind to myself. If anything, there's a sassy little English guy that's in another room that every once in a while he goes, really? That's the worst my critical voice is. But the felt sense is finally the first time in my whole life I feel comfortable in my own skin.
Wow.
I can go anywhere. I can speak to groups. I can be in unfamiliar places, and especially right here in this moment where whatever is going on, and I feel comfortable in this meat robot I'm in. I'm not in my head. I'm mostly present and not suffering 24/7.
Yeah.
So, that in itself is just this amazing amount of freedom to be able to experience. And it's possible if a knucklehead like me, somebody with so much fucking trauma, and I'm still doing, started doing some EMDR therapy with my therapist. She says I have PTSD about my marriage. I agree with that. So there's still work to do, but that's the amazing thing. Like, I don't think there's a single person that's broken. We all, maybe it feels like we have a broken heart. Maybe we feel like our fucking brain is broken, but my own experience and all these other people I've worked with, and I know people that were homeless and had wet brains or were complete psychosis and, screaming at the clouds. and they now have productive, happy lives.
Wow. Wow.
So, that's what this stuff can bring. This can be the road towards freedom and happiness.
Yeah. We can't get any better than that. That was awesome. That is a great lesson. Thank you, Gary, for sharing all that, for sharing your story and the story of your soulmate and the other people that you've had an impact on. I really appreciate you coming here and sharing all that. You're going to help a lot of people.
I really appreciate being able to talk to you today, Stuart. And this stoned ape. What do they say? The namaste. This stoned ape recognizes the awakened being, and you're stoned ape right now.
There you go. There you go. Two awakened stoned apes recognizing each other.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, brother.
Right on.
That concludes this edition of the Stoned Ape Reports. Thank you for listening. Please follow us on Instagram at Stoned Ape Comedy and subscribe to our newsletter at www.stonedapecomedy.com. Again, thanks for listening, and catch you next time, Stoned Apes.